I'm so grateful for each one of you dedicating this time to look after your body. And we know that looking after our body is in fact looking after nature itself. I'm so excited today to introduce Nancy. I'm going to spotlight her video, bring her in. Oh. Oh, we've lost her for a minute. Well, Nancy has over 20 years working experience with stress management. She works as a body worker and a counsellor, and I know that she's been working with polarity therapy and many other modalities. She's worked with individual and organisations to help people move to a more heart-centred space. Nancy discovered the tools of HeartMath, and she has been helping people to understand and work with these tools and integrate them into her every life. These are such powerful and effective tools that we can integrate really simple and easy ways to bring us into a more heart-centered space. I don't know. Here we go. Nancy, can you hear me? I lost your video there for a minute.
Yeah. I can hear you. I'm going to sign out and come back in again and see what happened to the technology.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, there you are.
Am I back? Okay.
Back. Incredible. Wonderful.
Yay.
So lovely. Thank you so much for sharing with us today.
Well, I'm delighted to be here, and it's a good example of what happens with technology to be able to use the tools that HeartMath offers so generously.
Yeah. I would love to know a little bit about your journey and how you found your way to this work.
Mm-hmm. My journey is grounded through the gift of largely grieving. I had several experiences, beginning at about the age of 15, that offered me a path through the grieving process. And it took me many, many years to come to a place where I could see that gift. So about, I'm going to say now, by the time we reached 2013, I came upon the tools of HeartMath. One of my clients, actually, when I first entered bodywork, which was around the year 2000, which, just without going into a lot of my own story, the way I got into bodywork was as a result of helping my husband at the time die at home. He had got cancer of the pancreas and died very suddenly. And I helped him through that process. And it was a life-changing process for me. It was truly life-transforming. I never felt that I was any more right person, right place, right time, doing the right thing. And I remember an instance as we were going through that process where I had a thought that just came over. And you know how sometimes that happens to you. It's just one thought, but it's a life-changing experience. What if I could live the rest of my life like this? And I committed to do that. So after Mike died, I quit my job as I was a human resource professional working in an organization, doing organizational development and things like that. I quit that job. I had always wanted to try body work. I went to massage school and started my own practice and never looked back. So that briefly is how I got into this type of work. As I said, I'm going to say it was 2004 or 5 when one of my clients who was in the Air Force, retired Air Force, mentioned that she had gone to a training program in California that was sponsored by this place called the HeartMath Institute. And she said, fabulous, fabulous tools for stress management. And of course, body work, stress management, it all goes together. But you had to go to California at the time, and I was not able to do that. So in about 2013, the Shift Network offered the basic course in HeartMath, from HeartMath. And I knew immediately that that was where I was going. And then after that basic course, there was an opportunity for a little more advanced course. And I thought, well, I'll take one more. And one more led to another, led to another, led to another, till I eventually was trained and now am part of a team of heart ambassadors sponsored by Sheva Carr and the Fiera Institute. Sheva is a master trainer for HeartMath. So that's how I got here today. And when Sheva talked with you, Joe, she said I had a very, very surprising experience with cleansing through a polarity retreat in just this last April. I was not looking forward to this spring cleanse that we were going to do because I had certain preconceived notions about what that meant. But I said I would do it, so I participated in it and did a 5-day cleanse. And during that time, my blood pressure dropped 20 points on the top and the bottom. My heart rate dropped 10, my resting heart rate dropped 10 points. I felt fabulous. And so I was hooked and curious now. So when this opportunity came along, Sheva thought I would be perfect. I would be a perfect match to meet with you all. So that's how I got here.
Thank you so much. It's so interesting how our life is guided by sometimes difficult situations that we can metabolize into positive outcomes. And maybe we wouldn't have gone down that path in the first place. But when we stay open and we stay in our heart and we stay centered, we can learn to take in that information and help it to guide us. And here we are today. My path has also been guided through adversity. And I believe that when we stay open and stay centered, we can learn to listen to all the cues that bring us to where we are today. So I'm excited that you had that experience with cleansing and that you are open to being with us on the journey today as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you say two interesting words, and I'd like to add a third, where you said open to cleansing and open to learning. The other part of the heart that is so important is a word called coherence, because a coherent heart and brain helps to help us make the most loving, compassionate, wise decisions that are possible.
Yeah, and for those people who don't know how to create a coherent field or what that even feels like, you know, at the beginning of this month, I sent out a little bit of information about HeartMath and a little tool so that people could just start to play with the tools of HeartMath, and maybe even get a felt sense of what this coherent field feels like within us. But I would love for you to tell us a little bit about your experience with this coherent field and what other people might be able to sense.
Well, you know, I'd like to. And one thing we've got the chat feature that we can use during this conversation, and I'd like to kind of get a sense from the group when you were experiencing what you would call a coherent heart or a coherent field. What did you notice? What do you notice in your body? And if you can just quickly type in the chat a word or two about how it feels in your body when you feel coherent. And you can also add, while you're doing it, well, what is your thought process like? What do you experience in your thoughts? Peaceful, softness we're getting. Chills, light, ease. And how about in your emotions? Thoughts are very still. Coherence does have all of these aspects. Heart coherence is a physiological phenomena. We can actually measure it. There are, you've heard of biofeedback tools. There are tools that can measure your heart rate variability and coherence. It's like, well, it's like a rowing team where all of your systems, mental, emotional, physical, are all working in harmony with one another. Some people think that coherence is a state of relaxation. And while you can be relaxed and coherent, you can also be performing in a peak way. Peak performance needs coherence. For example, if you're an EMT person, you don't want that person to be in a relaxed state. You want them to be ready, clear, and performing in a highly functioning way. So coherence is calm, but not necessarily relaxed. It's calm, clear, and ready. And we manage that physiologically by regulating our heart rate variability. So it's an empowering notion, and it's scientifically validated, which makes it kind of nice, because you can see when you change your heart rate variability, you also are able to harmonize all of your systems and into that coherent state. Does that cover what you were thinking there, Jo?
Absolutely. I think that, like you say, many people do think of this sort of, meditation going into relaxation and softness, but it can be like, like a dancer. When a dancer is in the flow state.
Precisely, and it's a thing that you can do on the go. When you are when you get that email that you have sort of a clutch, right? Before you compose your response, if it's an email that's upsetting you, you can use a tool to get coherent before you take the next action, in order to prepare for a challenging phone call or an event that I wanted to be coherent for you today. So in preparation for this meeting, I use the tools in order to set the tone. Despite any nervousness that I might have. I think that's another thing that people kind of think. They think that, that you have to always feel calm, cool, and collected. That's not realistic in our world. You can't always feel calm, cool, and collected, but you can learn how to manage your thought processes, your emotional climate by changing your physiology.
Yeah, so you talk about this heart rate variability, and like one of the things that I love about like my work is deeply around rhythm, and about how rhythm is such an important part of our life, and how rhythms aren't like these perfect rhythms. They aren't like exact. Like nature is very fluid and very organic in the way that it works. And so I would love to know a little bit more about our own heart rhythm and how it isn't like this like perfect way, but it has like tapering. So can you talk a little bit about why it's good for us not to be like in this static rhythm, in this like expanding?
Right. Well, we need, I don't know if you all have a sheet of paper and a pen near you. But if you do, you don't have to. I'll show you from my end too. If you do, just take a piece of paper and a pen or a pencil, and across the top of the paper, make a jagged line, like that, something like that, okay? And then under that jagged line, make another line that is kind of wavy, like that. Okay, you've got your line so that you can look at them. So we'll talk about heart rate variability. If you were to look at those two lines, which one would you say represents a stressful state? Top one or the bottom one? You can type it into the chat. Top one. This is not a trick question. Top one, yeah. Yeah, it's obvious. The top one is would represent a stressful state, and the bottom one maybe the way you would like to feel, or a more calm and peaceful state. Yeah. Well, it's actually these two lines represent what can be measured, which is your heart rate variability. And heart rate variability is the space between heartbeats. So it's not, and it doesn't want to be the same. You need more energy if you're going to go from a sitting position to a standing position. You need different amounts of energy depending on what your body needs when you're getting ready to do a presentation, go to work, do anything. You have to have that energy to be able to do it. Your heart rate needs to change. It isn't something that stays the same all the time, depending on what the body is calling. Depends on what the body is calling for, right? Well, what happens to you when you have some when you are startled, or you feel angry, or you feel frustrated? What happens in your body when you have a stress response? Say, you can type that in the chat. What does your body do? Let's see what's coming. Tightens, constricts. All right, that affects your heart rate. Is that not right? Your left arm gets tight. You get warm. Your heart rate begins to accelerate. So you know that your body is calling. It's calling on these systems to, it's not the time that you're going to rest and digest. It's taking the blood away from your brain and giving it to your limbs to be able to flee that tiger that's on your tail, or climb the tree, or fight. That's what our bodies are designed to do when we have a stress response, right? Well, our brains have not modified since we walked on the earth. We have that same brain that we always had. So now, an inflammatory email, or our fears about COVID, or our love for another person, all of those feelings that we have as human beings, our body interprets the same way. Is it safe? Do I feel safe, or do I feel threatened? And it changes our heart rate based on those, because we secrete like 1,400 different chemicals whenever we have an emotion cross by our radar. And that changes our heart rates. It's important to be able to do that. It's also important to know that when we are literally not being threatened, that's the empowering part of our hearts. Because we change that, we can also change the communication that comes to the brain. No longer, we always thought that the brain, how many of you did think that the brain controlled the heart? It actually, the messages from the heart, there are more ascending neurons from the heart to the brain than the other way. So if we can learn how to manage our heart rate and our heart rate variability, we also can manage how we're thinking, feeling, and reacting. And as you might imagine, once you can get a more coherent rhythm in your heart rate, what do you think that does to your thinking capacity? What is that? You become, you think more clearly, and you perform more effectively.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Nancy. It's like when we think about the autonomic nervous system, we think it is totally automatic. But then when we start to realize that we can use our breath and our intention and our awareness to affect our heart, which will indeed affect our autonomic nervous system.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We start to put the place of power back in ourselves, and then we feel like we're more in the driving seat, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I want to highlight one thing that you're saying. You talked about intention, Joe, because intention is such an important part of learning these skills. And I think that a lot of people, and they say, well, I want to change how I'm feeling. But it can't be what I would call a mental makeover. I'm feeling one way, I want to feel another way, so I think a different feeling, right? Well, that's good, but it doesn't happen. It has to happen physiologically too. Yeah, go ahead.
Because there's so many people talk about affirmations today, and you know, like sometimes we talk about affirmations and they feel sometimes like little lies to ourselves. But when they come from this heart-centered set space, what you're saying is, if we really tap into, and it comes from an emotional place as opposed to a thinking space, we can really affect our whole body. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, we absolutely can. And this is where the skill comes in and where the practice comes in, because it takes training to do that. You know, you can't learn to play an instrument by merely intending to want to play it. That helps, but you have to be willing to put the time and attention into practicing shifting into a coherent state. And this is kind of, let me see how I can say this, because I have to say it's something that I have come to more recently. And by recently, I have, recently is like the last 5 years for me, not yesterday, but, it's more recently. And that is when I started practicing, I was expecting myself to go from one state into another state. I mean, a less desired state into a more desired state. If that didn't happen, what do you think happened to me? I began thinking, what's the matter with you? Why can't you do this? I became aware of all of this sort of critical self-talk that was going on in the background. And what do you think that does to heart rate variability? Your thoughts create an emotional climate in you that affects your heart rate variability. So you can't do it all at once. And what this does is offer us an opportunity to expand our self-compassion and self-acceptance for our own human emotions that we have. That to me is one of, I think that a lot of people, I'm going to say, let me not say a lot of people. I was expecting myself to come to a place where I didn't feel negative emotions anymore. And that I have realized, as long as I'm human, I'm going to have them. But with the proper training, with intention, I can more quickly recover from, modify those more difficult, challenging emotions. But to try and to expect ourselves to get rid of them, not going to happen, because we're human.
I really appreciate you saying that. I really do. Like personally, my experience with a lot of trauma in my life, I was wanting at some point to be rid of it, and realizing that I was always, like that life was going to trigger me as I went along. There was always going to be things that were going to illuminate that inside me.
Mm-hmm.
Just learning to get a bigger tool belt and to learn how to really use those practices and implement them into my life, so that I recovered quicker, so that I didn't go as deep with the difficult feelings, and I could get back into a better feeling state quicker, and forgive myself during the process. So I really appreciate you saying that. Like, I feel that sometimes people think about like, oh, getting into this heart-centered space is ignoring the difficult emotions and like pretending that they're not there, but this isn't the case. And so I love what you're saying about like learning to recover quicker and being this like compassionate with yourself through the process, because that's a part of the human experience.
Yeah, I mean, it's all energy, right, Joe? It's and if we remove the judgment from like a good energy, you know, that some energy is good and some energy is bad. And we become more of a neutral filament for energy. Then what we're doing is we're managing energy. We need the resistance. We need a certain, call it struggle, if you will. If you think of the, of the chrysalis and a butterfly, what happens when, if we look at the chrysalis as it begins to, as it gets pushed against by the butterfly trying to open it. If we open it, the butterfly's wings don't develop the strength they need to fly, and it dies. So we need the resistances that come to us. We can use those in life, trauma and everything, in order to strengthen our own resilience. And yeah, I guess that's a good place to end a sentence. We can use it to strengthen us. Doesn't make it right, doesn't make it better, doesn't make it easy. It gives us pause for our choices, how we're going to deal with these things.
Yeah, resilience, such an incredible...
Resilience, yeah. Yeah, resilience, the HeartMath definition for resilience is the ability to recover, to prepare for, to recover from, and adapt to life's challenges and stresses. Yeah.
Yeah. And we need that more than ever right now. We need resilience. Right?
Yeah.
Something that's being called forward. I love, like, I know that you work with polarity therapy as well, and like have an awareness of some of the more esoteric anatomy that we have within us, that our subtle energy. And when people have been talking about, like in Chinese medicine, we speak about the upper dantian, the middle dantian, and the lower dantian, which is like the energy centers of the body, like the three brains, so to speak. And in Western medicine, we've not, you know, we've all been aware of the brain inside our gray matter. And recently we started to, like, science actually started to acknowledge the gut brain, our enteric nervous system, and how we have, like, our lower dantian, which is our, like, gut feelings, and how important that is to us and what an effect it has in our bodies. And like, modern science is yet to acknowledge the brain inside our heart, and the fact that our heart has its own neurons. And I truthfully believe that it will come about, and I know that it is a very sensitive subject with the medical aspect, but I believe, and this is what HeartMath is actually talking about, this intelligence in the heart, and that we have neurons in our heart, and that there is a brain center there, and that this field actually is stronger than the field of the brain, that it comes out, it has this, like, torus. I would love you to speak a little bit about how like our central or our middle dantian, or our heart brain, affects our field.
Yeah, this is one of the most exciting exciting topics for me. And I want to read, because I'm not a scientist. You hear me talk about my own experience. I have read the science. I know about the science, but I'm beginning to learn the various research aspects of it that I can point to. I'm not there yet, but I did, in preparation for this, I did look on the HeartMath site, and I encourage all of you to check out the science that has been collected since over the years that show this very thing. Actually, I'm reading this so that I'm sure I get it right, because that's one of the things in my training, You say, don't get into the science unless you know what you're talking about. So I'm being very careful here. In 1991, Dr. J. Andrew Armour introduced the term heart-brain. So we have known since then that the heart-brain, like the brain proper, has an intricate network of neurons, neurotransmitters, proteins, and support cells, and it can act independently of the cranial brain. The heart has 40,000 sensory neurons in relaying information in an ascending way. There are more ascending neurons to the brain than the other way. So it is physiologically clear that, and it's along this, I'm sure in the gut-brain connection, we all hear about the vagal nerve, right? Well, that's the nerve that comes through these energy centers. That's the very nerve we're talking about. So physiologically, the evidence is there. And wait a minute, I'm not going to say anything about Western medicine. I just had to stop. And the science is indisputable now that that you manage the gut and the heart centers, and that communicates directly with the brain in 4 different ways: physiologically, what do I want to say? Hormones, chemically, electrically, because our heart is an electric magnetic part of our body. And electrical energy can be measured. And I'm just looking here to see if I can find a picture of that torus that has been measured and pictured by magnetometers. For now, science can measure it more than 3 feet out now. And those of us that know more know that it actually, that field extends out much further than that. And of course, we know, when you walk into a room and you feel tension in a room, or you walk into a room and feel love in a room, you sense it, don't you? And that's that electromagnetic field. That is our electromagnetic fields connecting with one another. And that is related to the Earth's electromagnetic field. It happens, I haven't got the exact number, it's the same Hertz measure that the field, the electromagnetic field has, that our heart has when we are in a coherent state. So we are carrier waves, and the Earth is carrier wave. And that's the story sort of interconnectivity.
And that's incredible. And I think that many people have felt it. It's like a palpable experience. Mm-hmm. And maybe we just don't have the words to articulate it currently. And it's not something that it is in our everyday vocabulary or our everyday awareness. Mm-hmm. But many of us, when we go hiking in nature, we see something beautiful and an expansive vista, we drop into that state very quickly. Or like you say, when we are in a room and we're filled with love, we can sense it in our hearts, and measurably the other way around as well. We all use our heart to navigate danger or difficult situations. And by tapping into this intelligence, I really feel that this is part of what I believe is part of our intuition, right? This is what guides us and tells us, like, you know what, being with this person feels right, it feels good, or making this decision, or we meet somebody and we're excited to know more about them, or to work with them, or to date them. And this is like part of our heart intelligence guiding us and telling us and calling us forward into hopefully what I think is the Earth's master plan. It's like the Earth telling us like, yeah, you're doing the right thing, going in the right direction.
Yes, and you will find confirmation in many of the studies that HeartMath is doing now. There is another study that they're doing with trees and how they communicate all over the world. So these frequencies are being measured. As you mentioned, Joe, being frequencies of certain emotions can be measured, heart rate variability. You can see a certain pattern in peace, in love, in compassion, in frustration, in anger. You can see certain heart rate variability patterns. So it is very, there is now language, and our senses can confirm what we feel intuitively. And that's another whole area that HeartMath does do work in, which is in intuition. In the different types of intuition, there's that we kind of knowledge we gain and we don't realize we know it, but then when something comes up, you know it. There's a non-local intuition, which is you get a sense that about somebody and they call. That's another form of intuition. So it is the work at HeartMath is not only confirming, but is adding to the knowledge base of the world through rigorous through the scientific method. It warms my heart because it's bringing the more esoteric together with the senses. Now this is not HeartMath. This is Nancy speaking. I've never had a problem with non-physical sensations. I always thought in my mind they were as real as anything. Now we're seeing the research that's being done are showing that yes, non-physical is as real as physical.
Yeah.
It's just another sense, that's all.
I totally agree with you. We were speaking last week with the Kogi, people down in the Sierra Nevada, and they were talking a lot about our communication with the trees and how plants sense us through our emotions, through our fields. They don't understand like word thoughts per se, but they understand our electromagnetic frequency. It's not exactly what they said, but that's the way I'm interpreting it.
Yeah. Well, and let me, if I can just kind of expand on that a little bit, Joe, when you have a sense, but you don't have language for it, right? Say it comes through as an image, a color, what a sound, a smell, a taste, whatever that is. If it adds energy to your inner battery, right? Then that's worth pursuing. If it doesn't add energy to your inner battery, then that's good. It's all good information for you so that you can follow it into, call it this third dimension, this three-dimensional reality that we're in, and gain your own, do your own research for yourself.
Thank you. I would love for you to guide us into a deeper practice. We shared a little bit about the quick coherence practice at the beginning of the month.
Mm-hmm.
And hope that the community have been playing with that tool. And I would love for you to share one of your deeper practices, something that we can play with, that we can put in our toolbox and utilize.
Sure. About how long would you like? I'd be happy and love to do that. And also it will give you your own data to work with. We can share more about that in the chat too. About how long would you like this, Jo?
I think we could go for about 7 minutes.
About 7 minutes. Okay, will do. So, get yourself in a comfortable position, sitting upright, feet on the floor. As Jo said at the beginning, feel the points of contact where your body is meeting wherever you're sitting. Feel the safety of having the chair or a wall at your back. It's the body-mind code for safety to be able to feel, to relax. Shift your focus now. If you want to, close your eyes. If you don't want to, it's not necessary. You can kind of focus your gaze down and out a little bit. Shift your focus to the center of your chest. Sometimes it helps to place a hand there. And extend your breath, counting sometimes to 5 on the inhale, 5 on the exhale. Just breathing a little slower and deeper than usual. Now make a sincere attempt to experience a regenerative feeling. Appreciation is a feeling that we can access fairly easily. Care, compassion are other regenerative feelings. Sometimes bringing to mind a place or person that brings that, a feeling of regeneration to you, is helpful. Now I just would like to suggest that a feeling of appreciation or compassion, whichever feels best to you in this moment, that you extend that feeling of appreciation or compassion first to yourself. Sometimes it is the most challenging to extend appreciation and compassion to ourselves. We're sometimes our hardest critics. And in this moment, if you find anything like that coming to you, you can appreciate that that is just how you feel right now. Next, extend the feeling of compassion or appreciation to someone in your life who is easy to love. Bring that person to mind and breathe that heartfelt appreciation or compassion to them. And on the next breath, allow someone who you feel pretty neutral about, maybe a clerk in the store, a postman, a neighbor, and breathe that heartfelt appreciation to someone who you feel neutral about. And finally, now brings to mind someone or something, some concern that you have that is more difficult. I wouldn't pick the most challenging at this point, but bring to mind someone or something, an event that is more difficult. And radiate that feeling of compassion or appreciation, even for a complexity of a situation. Knowing that this carrier wave of appreciation and compassion radiates from your heart to that electromagnetic field around you and in your space, rippling out and beyond you, your surroundings, your neighborhood, your community, your state, our nation, throughout the world. Carrier wave of coherent communication, compassion, and appreciation. And when you're ready, allow your attention to come back. And you can open your eyes.
Thank you so much. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
I really appreciate your guidance today and talk and sharing with all of us.
Thank you.
So, what a beautiful way to start our cleanse, start our day, filled with love and compassion for ourselves and all beings here on earth. I really hope that you will learn a little bit more about the tools of HeartMath, just really taking today as a very gentle day. Let me just put a little bit of information on the information we put in the library, and we will be sharing a little bit next week about HeartMath and just guiding you into their tools and their website. So thank you, Nancy. I really appreciate your time today. It's been so wonderful with you. And I hope that you will join us again. You're always welcome here as part of our community. So I hope that you will be brave and experiment with some of the cleansing practices.
Thank you.
Yeah. Before we drop off today, I just wanted to open up to the community and see if anybody had any questions about the cleanse today. I started this morning with lemon water and some celery juice, and I will in a minute be going live on like probably at 11. I will be going live on IG, and I'll be just showing a little bit about what I'm going to be doing with my watermelon, preparing all of my watermelon juice and rind for the day. But if any of you have any questions, I'm here. If you want to know a little bit more about the cleanse or anything from me, just know that I'm always available to support you all. So you can ask me now or message me privately. Just know that I'm here for your journey. Thank you. I love you all. I love you, Marcy. I love you, Del. I love you, Rob. I love you, Delia. I love you, Megan, Marla, Antonia, Honor, Ali, Mickey. Oh, Ali, another Ali, Nancy. Thank you all, Jenny. Thank you all so much for being here. And just know that we're all going to be on the journey together today. What a beautiful way to give sweetness to our bodies with watermelon, to our hearts. Take it easy, relax, enjoy yourself, be kind and compassionate to yourself, and just know that I'm here to support you in any way that I can. Thank you all. Much love. Thank you.